How's it going,
Hello.
everybody?
It is going well, although I see me and Scott, and I don't see you guys.
You
I don't
don't?
know if there's a...
I see them.
I see.
Oh, I
I
do.
see us.
Yes, sorry.
We're there.
There's so many people.
You have to
Hooray!
horizontally
Scott is
scroll.
here!
Yay!
So this is exciting. We have a big, exciting show today. We've got Scott on. We have Brady and our repeat offender intern. So Dylan Gray you showed us last year some crazy stuff with pipes and SignalR, and now you're back with some exciting middleware stuff.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's the big
All
idea.
very exciting.
Mhm.
Okay, well,
Wow.
we don't have a huge amount of time, so let's jump in and show the community links, and then we can kind of go from there.
Cool. Let me give you the floor, John.
I will do this. Okay.
Neat.
Hooray! Okay, so this is kind of neat. I regularly talk about our workshops and presentations.netfoundation.org. I showed them off last week. This is kind of neat. Miroslav, they did a workshop locally, and I was like, why didn't you use our workshops? It turns out they did, but they did exactly what we were hoping. They forked them, and they tweaked them. They did exactly what they wanted to do. So they call out to the workshops that we've been showing off, and then they just did their own stuff. They added in some other Blazor stuff as part of it. They added in Serilog and just some other neat stuff. So this is great. Just a reminder that those presentations are, they're open source for a reason. They're absolutely out there for you to do what you want with. So very cool to see this. So anyways, this will be included with the links, and go ahead and take a look. New release of Saturn. So Saturn is an F-sharp based ASP.NET kind of variant. So this is updated to use ASP.NET Core 2.2. Some other neat stuff, support for gRPC, some other things. All right, two things from DevExpress. Dan Roth sent this over to me during this past weekend. So this is cool. This is a utility to set metadata. So as your metadata changes, as you navigate through the site or different things happen, you want to be able to update your metadata. That's not built into Blazor currently, and they ran into this as an issue and wanted to be able to change it. So this is a utility that allows doing that. So this goes through and explains how to add custom metadata and how to change it at runtime and stuff. Also from DevExpress, Blazor components. So new release, this includes a scheduler control. This is really nice. I like that, that you can build your own controls, but then when you get into complex things like scheduling and stuff like this, it is nice that you've got component vendors that are building complex, deeply, like all kinds of stuff. Like this includes, it's mobile support, includes all kinds of recurring appointments, all this kind of stuff that's beyond what you would normally build. They also have data grid, tree view, a lot of other stuff. So cool to see those updates coming out. This is interesting. So you've got .NET Watch run, which will kind of rebuild things as your code changes. This developer was tired of having to refresh their browser as static files changed. So as you go through and you change things like, your CSS or images or HTML that's in your static area, this is just a pretty lightweight kind of thing. When you're in development, it sets up a dev reload, and then you set up this tag helper, and then there's some middleware that just runs, and it just writes out a timestamp. And so based on it just says every second it writes out this timestamp in the tag helper. There's some front end JavaScript that just monitors, and the timestamp only changes when your static files are rebuilt. So it's just kind of a way to, just monitor, and whenever you change your static files, then it automatically reloads your browser. So kind of neat. And, cross-platform, you'll see here it's on a Mac that's working.
That's cool.
Interesting stuff. All right, Damien Bowden. So several updates from him this week. I'm just showing one, but he's also, I always call out that he goes back and updates his blog posts. So he's gone through and updated his code samples for Preview 7, which is neat. One of the things that Dan Roth called out last week is that the templates are not using any kind of front-end manager. It's just, and they're not going to be using CDN in the future. But there's tons of different ways you can manage your kind of front end packages. So Damian Bowden's showing an up-to-date way of using NPM and what is it called exactly? Bundler minifier, build bundler minifier. So that's that's a package I believe Mads Christensen built. So here just showing how to kind of set that up and integrate that in with NPM. So always good to see. These things kind of keep changing, all the front end package management systems. So good to kind of see up-to-date examples of how to do that.
I'll have to get that link because that's one of the things we talked about last week when we showed the new Preview 7 version of the .NET website. One of the things it still relies on is Bower. So we'll probably have to update it to use that. That'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, there's this. There's also the Libman, which is kind of the lighter weight thing. So yeah, a lot of options. Cool. All right, just a few other things. So we had the docs team on showing, that was maybe a month ago, the docs team was on showing ASP.NET docs and how they manage the docs and all their kinds of stuff. One of the questions I asked them is, they've got a lot of great samples in their repo, but in order to get to the samples, you actually have to clone the whole repo, which is like a gigabyte. It's crazy. So I asked if there's a way that you can actually get in there and just grab, specific samples, like just the code you want. So they're working towards that. Here they've got this samples browser, and samples browser has, like, now I can go in, I can say, like just ASP.NET Core. You'll see right now there's just a few of them, but I think that from what I understood on the call, the plan is to get all the samples that are in the docs, make them available here. So you can go in and just directly grab just individual samples, which is something I'm very happy about. And the last thing before I pass over to you, we've got .NET Conf coming up September 23rd. And the important thing that we want to call out here is the call for speakers is open now. One of the cool things that we do, we have 2 days of content that's presented in the Channel 9 studios. And then the last 24 hours is around the world Twitch stream. And this is your chance, we love presenters around the world. They could be interns or students. They could be open source contributors. They could be, this could be something where you've only spoken at your local meetup and you'd love to, present something a little bigger. So this is really cool also because it goes 24 hours. You can present in your own time zone. You don't have to present on, whatever, it's not the middle of the night for you or whatever when you're presenting.
But if you do present in the middle of the night Pacific Standard Time, you'll have to deal with Jeff Fritz and myself because I'm the graveyard shift operator here in the studio. That's true. So if you want to have fun, present late. There's that.
There it is. Awesome. And we have all kinds of great stuff going on this year. We've got stuff for we have a student program. We have all sorts of great stuff. So follow here .NET Conf. Here's the website. Submit your thing and watch as we'll be making more announcements. And I am done talking. I will share the links for these. They'll be in the description, and they will also be in the chat.
Excellent.
All right.
Well, we actually talked about one just before you got online. Do you want to reshare your screen and we can show this cool SignalR game?
Sure.
We'll show that real quick. Last week we had a campus-wide hackathon, and during the hackathon, somebody used SignalR to build a Snakes and Ladders game. So at this point, I don't know if John and Scott are in a thing together. I don't know if Scott has joined, but actually,
send me the.
I can join here.
Yeah.
Snakesandladders.azurewebsites.net.
I think Dylan might be joining. He can see your code, NQSA2. So essentially what we do here is we would enter in our alias, and then John hits create a game session, and then somebody else can enter in their own alias and enter in his...
Oops, I just created a new game. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
Okay. PG9CC.
PG9CC, so you can join that one.
When I go in there, it says board ID cannot be blank.
Oh, weird. You have to do set alias. Oh, there you go. So now John's rolling the dice, and you can see that he moves a couple spaces, and if somebody else were to jump in there with him, maybe one of our viewers could jump in there. They could theoretically, play the game with him in real time. We had a developer on campus, or a developer at Microsoft, Abhinav, who pinged me about this just before the show, and we thought, hey, let's go ahead and show this. And it's not your turn.
9cc. There's another
Yeah,
website, Snakes and Ladders, with both of them plural. And I was on
Oh, is that
and
the
it
one we
looked
should go to?
mostly
I'm
the
going to go to
same.
the singular.
All right,
So I'm in
here.
there now.
Snake and ladder. So Scott, you click on roll dice.
It's not your turn.
Well, we'll have to learn
Says
how to
it's
play
not
this.
my
My
turn.
turn.
Maybe we messed it up.
Uh-oh.
Should I like refresh the page or
I
something?
think
We'd have to reconnect that way. Anyway, if you want to try it out, those of you online, you could go to Snake and Ladder, and I think you can only do 2 players at a time. So that's one rub. But if we do 2 player at a time, then individual folks can party on it together. But I thought it was a cool hackathon project, and it was related to one of my favorite topics in ASP.NET, SignalR. So we'll come back here, and I guess, is this the point where we want to introduce or reintroduce our favorite intern and talk about your
Sure.
awesome project?
all right.
Yep.
So I'll go over the presentation. So I'm Dylan, and I was here last summer, and I made the pipe parameter stream things in SignalR, and I presented on here. Now I'm back for another summer, and I've made some new middleware for you, and it's pretty exciting.
But before you jump into
Before I
it,
jump into it,
one thing I wanted to say is, we want to let everybody out there know, we have an awesome intern program here at Microsoft. I learned last week, I was working with the Arcade Make Code team. They were nice enough to bring my son in. He met some interns there. These were interns that actually do real world projects. Shortly thereafter, I had a meeting with another intern, and she said that her first intern project was, they said that her mission statement was cure illiteracy for 1 million people. She was like, what?
Oh,
So these are like real projects. If you're an intern here, you do like real stuff that gets really, really shipped. And it's pretty fantastic. Do you want to speak to that, like
It's,
how that was?
it's an excellent program. Like, you show up and they're like, here's a problem, and you go and you work on it. And they have a lot of intern events, and they make sure you're happy, they make sure you're learning, they make sure that you make useful projects. It's a good hello. Is my mic
better.
working?
That's better.
That's better.
You're
All
louder
right.
now.
All right. Yep. So
Keep
intern
it close.
program, it's good. It's fun. We get scavenger hunts. We get free food. We get lots of time to code.
Priorities.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, let's see his demo. We have a couple questions in here. John asked Cam Soper a question. We're going to get some ASP.NET Core samples in. I also talked to one of the PMs on that project the other day and asked him if we could eventually get the SignalR organizations samples being pulled in. We think we might do that. And yes, Sebastian's right. Dylan is kind of a quiet person. Your team's
Yeah.
messing with you now.
Yeah.
Okay. We're hazing him. So let me go ahead and flip
No
to,
stress.
to his monitor.
All right. So, wow, I'm Dylan, and I've made for you some concurrency limiter middleware. And so what this does is it's middleware, and it limits the concurrency of your server. And so
Why would I want to do that?
why would you want to do that? Wow. So 3 years ago, we had this GitHub issue. What's important here? So there's 100 comments on this GitHub issue. That's a lot of comments. And so this problem is bad, and a lot of people were having it. Basically what this said is they said, wow, so we have a website, we tested it, it worked fine, we pushed it to production and it just fell over. We had a lot of clients with long-running requests, a lot of clients with hangs, and it just really didn't work, and we don't know why. Please fix it. And so Stefan, who's been my mentor on this project, looked into this, went through some dumps, and found, wow, you have 440 threads that are blocked waiting on tasks.
Wow.
That's a lot. So what goes on here? Suspiciously slow server. It was thread pool starvation all along. So Fowler spoiled this meme on Twitter, but it's still a good one. So for those of you who don't know, thread pool starvation is when you run out of threads. So like operating system threads are pretty heavy, pretty expensive. What C# does, what the .NET runtime does, is it'll pull like a dozen threads from the operating system and it'll keep them. And then when it has tasks to run, it will schedule them. It'll find an available thread. It'll say, hey, run this task. And it can get through like a couple thousand tasks in a couple seconds with only like 10 or 12 of these like heavy operating system threads. What can get really bad is if you have some tasks that are waiting on other tasks. And so like theoretically your system is lock-free and everything should go through. But if you have your 12 threads like here, and they're waiting on other tasks to be able to complete, but you have a whole heap, like you have a whole pile of tasks going up that are all waiting for this limited number of threads, then this is something that can like gridlock pretty bad, and this is something you can bottleneck on. So that's thread pool starvation. That's why it's a problem. And so this project is, how do we mitigate that? So here's a really good comment from a user on the original GitHub issue. So they ask, oh, it's a little cut off on the display here, but so they ask, is there some way of limiting the amount of concurrent requests in Kestrel? I would like to try and see if limiting the amount of simultaneous requests can temporarily fix the problem. And so that's what this project is. Can we limit the requests? Yes, we can. And does it fix the problem? Yes, it does. And so that's both good. So the big idea, this is like, it's like the stoplight on a freeway on-ramp. So you limit inflow into your system, into your freeway, into your server. This avoids congestion, and this lets you increase throughput. So by letting less things in, you get better flow, more stuff through, and this just makes everything better. So
how is this not just moving congestion back onto the on-ramp?
So it does move congestion back onto the on-ramp.
But it lets some things happen.
It lets some things happen because
Right.
either your freeway's clogged up and no one can get through, or you back up some congestion and then the people who are on the freeway can keep moving.
Okay, so you're clogged differently.
You're
Right.
clogged differently.
Right.
So instead of the whole thing being clogged, only part of it is clogged.
Would this be, from a computer science and large system architecture perspective, this is correctly clogged as opposed to incorrectly clogged?
Correctly clogged. That's a good way of putting it.
You know what I mean? Like, things, yes, there are some people who are going to have a lousy experience, but at least something happens, some work occurs.
Right.
Yeah,
When
it's if
previously, literally nothing occurs.
it's
Yeah.
if your server can only handle like 1,000 requests per second physically, and you're getting like 5,000 requests per second, the best you can do is serve 1,000 of them and then discard the rest.
Yeah, it's sort of a no customers versus some customers question. You know, that makes sense.
Cool.
Cool.
And so the first thing I tried is I took a semaphore and I put it on top of the server. And so any request that came in, it would try and grab the semaphore. And if it can grab the semaphore, it goes into the server. And if the server's full, it'll wait to grab the semaphore and everything will pile up. And this worked and it mostly solved the problem. But as more and more things waited on the semaphore, you could get memory pressure build up. And so I added reject if there's too many queued requests. So keep track of what's waiting on the semaphore. You can set a limit. So say if there's 500 things waiting to get into the server, then just start rejecting new ones that come in. So this worked pretty well. So doing some more research, looking at what other organizations have done with these types of problems. So the first thing I tried was this like normal queue on the left, like the kind of line you wait in at the grocery store. You know, you got to go all the way through. If it's full, new requests show up and they say, oh, it's full, I'll come back later. What other people do and what's better in a lot of situations is actually doing a first in, first out, a stack. And so this can seem like counterintuitive because you're like, oh, everyone should have to wait in line. It's no fair, like you show up and then the server just immediately replies to you. This ends up being better, so like same throughput, lower latency, because, so like in that situation where you can only physically give good responses to 1,000 customers per second, instead of making everyone wait through line, just give those 1,000 responses back as quickly as you can, and then the rest of the people, throw them into the backlog, tell them to, like, come back later. So the people you can respond to, you do so as quickly as possible. The people you can't, you just forget about. There are some cases where this first in, first out queue policy is better, especially when like the user does one page load and it launches like 3 streams. And in the queue policy, those will all basically go through together. Where in the stack policy, like one of them could get like bobbled up. And so the user gets like half of their page loaded. And there's like, wow, where's the CSS? And then they refresh and add more load. So we've included both of these policies in the middleware. You can choose what one you want, and you can additionally write your own policy and plug it in with dependency injection. Cool. So we see in the chat, are these sorts of controls supported? Yes, they're supported, and you can go write your own implementation. So
I think you had a good metaphor for the FIFO and LIFO.
uh-huh.
Was it the
What was the
Cafe 16?
Oh yeah, it's you go to Cafe 16, you walk up to the counter, you're like, hey, can I get my food? And either they give you your food right away, or they tell you just to go away. And so there's never any line. Either you get your food, or they send you back to work. But either way, there's no wait.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's a little argument about that on the chat there, because people are saying like, hey, isn't that a bad experience for some people because their request fails? But I think the point is that you don't want to have this backlog where everyone's waiting and the whole thing just dies. You want to have some requests fail so that you can bail out, right?
The Cafe 16 is an interesting analogy, but I think a more universal one would be Ticketmaster, where the tickets come live and it's like refresh, 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 refresh. But once you get in, at least you can buy tickets.
Right.
And everyone else is being told go away, while you're staying without this, nobody gets tickets at all until an hour later when the whole thing chills out.
Yeah, I think the demo will help clear this up too, because you'll see that it's like really broken, and we add the middleware, and then it's really fixed.
Yep. You want to cut to that?
So,
and I think Sebastian had a suggestion.
Sebastian had a suggestion.
We've got team members throwing out suggestions. He had a suggestion so that we didn't have to wait the 10 seconds, but you probably know what that is.
I also am wondering, though, if the thing is under such high load that you can't even get into your middleware, this does depend on Kestrel being able to do something in the very minimum.
Yeah, this isn't like this would not really help against DDoS. This is like, so specifically this is if we have like sync over async code, if we have patterns that really create thread pool starvation on our server, this is something we can enable that will just make our stuff work, and we don't really have to worry about it. So
this is
the use
fail
case.
fast.
This
Fail
is
as fast as you can.
Right.
And do you need to make sure that the middleware is really high up in startup.cs so that it's not like anything it can avoid doing off and off? It just
yeah. So the higher it is, the better performance you get.
And to be clear, we don't have a ETA on the availability for it, right? We haven't talked about like when it would be. You can like copy paste the code off GitHub into your own middleware, but but we don't have a ship date for this.
No.
This is still in discussion. So let's see the demo. Or do you have more
the
slides?
demo? The demo. Look at that. Good timing.
Perfect.
So we'll tab over here.
You said
go into Visual Studio. Warm up 2, duration 5. I have warm up and duration values, Sebastian. I'm using 5 and 10.
That's cool.
Just because that's what I've tested before and I know it works. So here we have, wait, PowerPoint's still up.
Oh.
How do I close this? Escape?
Escape, yeah.
All right, here we go. So here's a sample like ASP.NET app. And so basically all it does is it writes hello world. Before it writes hello world, it has this 100 millisecond sync over async wait. So this is, you take an async task and you like call it synchronously. And this is an anti-pattern, and this will induce thread pool starvation, which will then cure with the middleware. So we go over here to Sebastian's cool benchmarking tool, and we will run it. So what this does is it takes the local project and it wraps it up in a zip file, and it sends the zip file over to Azure, and this gets built and deployed on a machine, and it exposes a port, and then we have another machine bombard it with requests and measure what happens, and then report it back to us. And so it takes a little bit to run. What you'll see when it's finished running is that essentially 0 requests per second have gone through. So there's been no requests. Yeah, there we go. So 0 requests per second right there, and like 1% CPU utilization. So what's going on is the server sitting there and it's being asked, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And it just keeps on accepting more and more jobs, and it becomes like totally overwhelmed and it gets nothing done. And so the fix here is we give the server the ability to self-regulate. We give it the ability to say, hey, no, I'm busy. I'm not going to do that. And this is like a good tip for work as well. Got to say no to some stuff sometimes.
Sure.
So we'll do services dot add.
Is that like a slam on your PMs?
It's not a slam on PMs. We do a good job. We do this here. We get a lot of work done.
Kidding.
All right. Sorry. So options goes to, so we'll set max concurrent requests. So this is how many requests do you allow in the server at any given time. And so a safe default will go for environment.processor count, because this will be low enough that it'll, like, it can be higher and it's faster if it's higher. But if it's environment.processor count, like, you'll avoid the thread pool starvation and nothing will be bad. So this is a safe default to start at. And then we'll set the request queue limit. So this is, so this is how full the queue can be before it starts rejecting stuff. And we'll just use a low number here for sake of the demo. And the last thing we have to do is add app.use concurrency limiter. And so we've added basically 4 or 5 lines of code. We go back to here and we rerun the same, We rerun the same exact command. It'll do the same exact benchmark. And what we'll see is much better performance, because the server will like accept a request until it gets up to its limit. When it's at its limit, it says, no, I don't want to talk to you. Don't give me more work. Go away, go away. It'll finish one of its things, return it, and it'll say, all right, give me another one. And then it'll pull another one. And then, so because it's able to self-limit this way, yeah, we see like 280,000 requests per second. And this is way better. This number is a little misleading though. So we see it's like 2.8 million total requests over these 10 seconds. And about
2 million bad.
Yeah, like 2.8 million again were bad responses.
Right.
So if you do the difference, you see in this 10 seconds, it got through about a little over 1,000 valid requests, which makes sense because each one takes 100 milliseconds on like a 12-core machine. So that works out to about 1,000's the most it can do. And then there's 2.8 million rejections of, no, I can't do that during this same 10-second interval.
Right.
So going back to Scott's Ticketmaster example, I would think of a case where I would want to be more specific about what I want to fail and what not. So for instance, I want my website always to come up, but then I'd like maybe just specific API requests to fail. Is there a way to target, or have you thought about like making it more targeted as far as what can fail and what like I want to queue up no matter what?
Yeah, so there's nothing directly in this that interfaces with that. If you do if you branch your middleware pipeline with like endpoint routing stuff, you can have like most of your website just normal, and then you can like put this limiter over that one database query that takes forever and say like only allow like 5 of these at once. And so you can selectively apply this to certain parts of your application with endpoint routing.
Right.
And we can build in more features in the future if that's something people would find useful.
Yeah, and this is the first time anyone outside the team has seen this. So all this we did an internal presentation as well. And we had some similar questions. I think the question that I had was, let's say you are in a web farm and you want this to kind of inform your load balancer, or your, what's the term I'm looking for here? The thing that will automatically fire up new instances, the scale out manager.
Organizer.
Yeah. If there was some way you could couple this middleware and say, hey, the server's starting to get pegged, we probably need a second server or an end server or whatever, and then we go from there. So we talked about something like that as well. But again, this is the first time anybody outside the team has seen it. So if you have any feedback on this, or you have ideas on how to make it better, this is a perfect time to start getting that feedback in.
We've got there's an onRejected callback. So when it rejects, it calls onRejected. So by default, it's a 503 HTTP error. So it sets this and then it kicks it out. On the way out, you can set your own HTTP message. So you can do or you can add whatever field, you can add whatever flag to the outgoing request when it's rejected. And you can have something else, like your load balancer equivalent, checking this and saying, all right, this server's overloaded. We should give it less. So this is sort of a way to do that messaging.
And you have a question about Kestrel server limits, max concurrent connections. How does this differ from that?
So I'm assuming max concurrent connections is the number of clients that can be connected at a time,
right,
where this is the number of HTTP requests that can be active within the middleware pipeline at any given time.
Got it.
And so they're related, same concept, working on different levels.
Yeah, one's a connection, one's a request, essentially. Cool. That's good stuff.
And so in summary, so if your application has sync over async code, unexpected slowness under load, high variance in request processing time, so these are symptoms, then you should try concurrency limiter today. And it's free and open source.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so that's the shout out. And then there's one
So-
last.
So free open source. It's out on the where's it at? Did you show the repo
Where's
already?
it
And
at?
I'm
The repo, it's on the main repo. We can go there.
ASP.NET Core.
ASP.NET,
Cool.
ASP.NET Core.
Mhm.
It's in middleware. You can go there and copy paste the code, use it today.
so
We'll publish
if people
it soon.
try it out and have feedback or whatever, they can put an issue right on that repo.
That would be super useful.
And then you have the one more chart there.
I have one more chart. This is just, so the max concurrency, how many things you let in at a time. We tried a bunch of stuff to get like a good default value, to get something that automatically set a default value for you. And basically it's really confusing. And the thread pool has a lot of magic going on. And so we advise start it low, measure perf in production or under like simulated load that's pretty close to what you expect in production, and then increase it slowly. And when you fall off a cliff, back up.
Yeah.
So what we want to avoid is like, oh, I'll just start it at like 100 and then you still get thread pool starvation and you're like, no, it doesn't help. Or you set it to like we allow only one thing in this like 20 core server and you're like, wow, this middleware just makes things worse. So we want like enable the middleware and see if it actually helps and then like make a good decision.
Yeah.
And so that's what this slide's about.
You definitely test that out. It'd be good stuff.
And so thanks for listening, and questions, comments, concerns.
We've had quite a few questions on it. We have another one in the Ticketmaster example. If I have a ticket in my basket, the requests get prioritized. Do I just need to be pushed off to a different server once past that initial request? That's the kind of thing you and I talked about. If you have a farm, is there a way that you could redirect traffic to one of those servers? And then we had another question, HTTP 1.1 and earlier, request equals connections. Not necessarily, think about SignalR. That's a static connection. It's not necessarily just a request. So I agree. Nice one, Dylan. Good job. That's fantastic. That was good stuff.
So Dylan, you've been an intern 2 times. Any thoughts? What I don't know. Do you have advice, thoughts on coming back, or recommendations for people applying for internship? Or you did mention there's food.
There's food. There's a lot of, so like one of the best parts, it's all the social activities with other interns. So we have like board game parties like after work on Thursday, and we bring a couple boxes, like we have 30-40 different board games, maybe like 30-40 different people. Play a lot of Coup, some Catan, Century Spice Road. So a lot of like new and exciting board games. You get to like try out different people's. So that's one of my favorite things this summer. Like Sunday afternoons, we have a group and we all go over to like someone's Airbnb. We all like meal prep for the week. We get like good 5-6 hours of like cooking, hanging out on the couch. So it's great to, be out here in Seattle, hang out with a lot of other interns.
Yeah.
So Amine asked, what do you need to do to be accepted as an intern?
What do you need to do to be accepted as an intern? Well, there's applications online. You can go to careers.microsoft.com. We had a recruiting fair at our college, and so I applied there. Microsoft internships are really good.
Yep. And you don't have to wait until college, as I mentioned. I learned this last week. High school interns. There were high school interns. Their internship was working on, Scott, you want to hold up one of those cool devices? Working on little devices like my son has one called the Meow Bit, and they actually build web-based tools where you can write games that can be downloaded to devices like this. And these kids are in high school, and they're not only building these devices, they're building games to test their game building engine out. and then they're building big cardboard and wood sculptures to put their games into so that they can play them in the office. So I'm sure that not every single internship is as fun as that. I know yours wasn't. I was in the room with you, and you weren't building games and doing all kinds of stuff in high school, at least not during this internship. But just think of the opportunities. You know, you get to work with awesome people like people on screen, and people like us. It's fun. It's great. So I'd like to applaud your internship. Your second one, you did good. It was good stuff.
It was a good time.
That's cool.
Glad to be here.
I kept hearing people say, "When Dylan comes back, you'll see." When Dylan comes back, and he comes back. So it's cool. Yeah, it's cool.
Sure. I have a couple questions. I would say that, and I'd like to hear from the people in the chat in the YouTube. But I bet you that there's probably some professional developers of .NET that might have been in this 15, 20 years, or at least 10 years rather, that don't know things like thread starvation and how these things work. Did you figure this out on your own, or is there a class on this? How do you know this at your age, and what course did others not take?
So I learned all of this when I showed up at the start of the summer, and David Fowler and Stefan were like, "Hey, we have a summer project for you. Sometimes we get thread pool starvation." And I'm like, "What's thread pool starvation?" And they're like,
okay,
"Well,"
so you didn't
and so
know
they
this
sat me down
coming
and
in.
they taught me. I did not know this coming in. So it's a Microsoft internship. It's a good education.
Do you think thread pool starvation is a .NET thing, or is it a computer science thing in your mind?
When you have complex systems, you're going to get bottlenecks, and web servers are complex, and this is a bottleneck that shows up in .NET, especially like when you're porting from like an older version of the website to .NET Core and trying to refactor stuff and mess around, and you end up giving up, and because it's a lot of work to like fix every sync over async thing. And so some of it slips through, and like this happens, and it's often not worth it to go back and fix everything and like do it properly or do a full rewrite. And so this is something where you put it on and it's good enough and you have a website. And that's the goal here.
And as we've seen many times, I mean, sync over async is something that a lot of devs have a difficult time coming to .NET Core. If you're switching from framework to core, async is a thing. I don't know how many times. I'll go with 3. We'll say 3. 3 times Fowler has said, "There's no such thing as async void," and he starts yelling at me again. So now I know better. It's async task. So cool. I don't think we have any more comments or questions, and I know at least one of us had a hard stop here in a couple moments. John, do you want to wrap here, or do we have anything else we want to talk about?
I've got my Avalon role assignment Blazor thing.
Oh yeah.
If you want to go.
You got more stuff you want to show off? Yeah, we can wrap
he's got
up.
more stuff. We can show one more thing. He actually did a hackathon
and
project.
while you're doing that, Peter asked what that hardware was again. I think that Scott showed.
Which one was that? Well, the one that I mentioned is called the Meow Bit. It's something that interfaces with the arcade.makecode.com platform really well. It's a browser-based game tool. I'm not sure exactly which one the one that Hanselman pulled up was. I think that one was an Adafruit one.
Well, all right. So
you're asking me to hold it up?
It was the Pi Gamer. That's what it was.
That's the Pi Gamer.
Yeah. Thank you. I forgot the name. So is this your demo?
Badge. It's all in the same family.
This is the.
Yeah, I got to run to my evening event.
All right.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for coming today, Scott.
No, thank you for sharing that. Last question, did we say this was in a public repo?
Yes, ASP.NET Core on GitHub.
All right, cool. I'll go check it out.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night. And now we'll go back to Dylan's screen. You want to tell us about this other hackathon project you did?
All right. So there's a social deduction game, Avalon. It's sort of like Mafia or One Night Ultimate Werewolf. Other games like this.
We've been playing that a lot lately.
We've been playing that a lot.
Yeah.
So Blavalon. It's Avalon and Blazor, and so it's a Blavalon.
Of course.
This is a good name.
I mean, This is just part of the ASP.NET thing. For a while, everything started with a K,
Uh-huh.
and
Ended with
then
an R.
everything, ended with an R, and now everything's blah something or other. All right, what do you got?
All
Let's see
right.
this thing.
So, Avalon, you've got a. So there's roles and different roles know different things about different people, and so when you're playing this in person, you have to do like heads down, thumbs up, and then all right, these people put your thumbs up, these people open your eyes, thumbs down, eyes down, and now these other people, and then someone's like, oh, I heard someone's arm move, we have to restart, and so this gets tricky, and so what this does is it lets you like make rooms. So like here, Brady on the left. Wow, he's made a room. You can enable, you can disable different roles. Over here, where I'm Dylan, I can click, wow, join, and we see like 2 out of 7 players. And when, oh, that's not enabled. Anyway, so the idea is that, you know, like it syncs state between the 2 sides. I'm gonna get it like up and working. We're gonna play some Avalon at work. At
Nice.
lunch Thursday.
That'll be cool.
That's gonna be good.
Is this going to find its way into a public repo?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
go put it on my GitHub.
Okay,
When it's fully functional.
cool. And we
Yeah.
just got you on Twitter as well, right?
I am on Twitter.
Okay, so John, you'll have to put his
Great.
Twitter handle in the show notes so that people can keep up with Blavalon as he parties
Yeah.
on it.
Avalon. And create another room. Leave room. There was a kick room feature a little bit ago, and it worked.
That's
And
cool.
Now it's broken. Oh well.
That's what you do when you keep coding on things.
Yep.
Cam asked if one of the devices, Cam's one of our ASP.NET Core writers, if Scott had held up an MX chip. I don't think I saw an MX chip. He had a
You
different
said
one.
the Meowbit and
The
PyGamer.
and PyGamer. And the other one, he didn't tell us what the name of the other one was. That was the first time any of us had seen it too. So, I think that's all we have today, John. Let me go back to the split
Yeah,
screen
that's great
mode.
to stop right there.
All
That's
right.
cool.
Cool. Awesome. And don't forget about .NET Conf. We still have room if you want to present. If we still have room in the Twitch room, so please do. Please submit. You could present over Twitch from home if
I
you
could
want
present
to.
over Twitch from home.
You totally could.
Wow.
Yeah. So you could do a presentation.
Ooh, I
But
found the bug.
we found the bug.
Found
That's
the
good.
bug.
We found a bug live. It's good stuff.
Look at that.
I've bug finding.
Cool. Well, everybody have a lovely week. John, thanks a lot as always. Everybody, thank Mr. Hanselman for popping in for us as well. That was fantastic. And
Yeah,
and we'll send you off
Yeah.
tomorrow with a nice lunchtime celebration.
nice sushi lunch.
And follow Dylan. Hopefully he'll be back soon doing even more ASP.NET Core code.
Woo.
So awesome.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks a bunch,
All
folks.
right.
Y'all
Thank
take
you
care.
so much.